And good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very important segment today on the third day of November 2022. Well, it's a very important day today. It's the launch of the Indian exhibition at Sunnybank Multicultural Gallery. We'll talk more about that today. So it is a great night tonight when the official opening will take place at 6:30 p.m. We'll bring you all the information about that very soon. Well, thank you very much once again for joining us today. So we have our news update, and following the news update, we will have our daily India report, followed by all the functions and events taking place right here. Well, right now, let's take a look at those news that we had yesterday about the lions getting out of Taronga Zoo. What happened there? Jeremy looks at that report.
They're two words no zookeeper ever wants to hear: escaped lions. But for a short time today, there were 5 lions on the loose at Sydney's famous Taronga Zoo. Guests taking part in what's known as the Roar and Snore sleepover were forced to flee to a safe zone. They took refuge in a bathroom until the lions could be secured.
Investigating a great escape. Zookeepers and police assessing the perimeter after 5 lions broke out of their Taronga Zoo enclosure, forcing staff and guests to flee to safe zones.
We were a bit surprised. Well, is this part of the action package?
Families who slept in tents just metres from the exhibit say an alarm sounded before staff told them to abandon their belongings and run to a bathroom block.
And they were running around saying, "Get into, this is an emergency, code 1.
We realised, okay, something's outside. What is it? And they said, it's the lions. So we're like, ooh, scary.
The escapees were known to each other. A father and 4 of his cubs born at the zoo last year. The lions breached one containment fence, an incident the zoo labelled as significant.
4 of the lions calmly made their way back into their main exhibit and dens, and 1 lion cub was safely tranquilised.
The animals are now being monitored.
The zoo says it was just a 10-minute period between the lions leaving the main exhibit and the emergency response. They say an initial review has found that it was an integrity issue with a containment fence that led to the animals' escape.
Nobody was injured in the incident.
Taronga Zoo itself has its own safety perimeter fence, so at no time did the lions exit that area or exit Taronga Zoo.
While the zoo is open, access to the enclosure is on pause. While
really important to be highlighting the welfare of the animals. They have gone back, they're safe now, they're healthy, and now they're looking like dandelions.
Right.
But this all actually...
This
all actually happened yesterday. This all happened yesterday morning at about 6:30 when a staff member had set off a duress alarm because 5 lions had actually come out of their enclosure into another separate area. So they were still separate from the public, but they had breached their original enclosure. It really just lasted for 10 minutes or so. They had actually gone through a gap in the fence, but you've really got to spare a thought for the people that were inside the zoo grounds, even though it was closed to the public. There were several families that were taking part in a zoo program called the Roar and Snore program, which really involved them stayed overnight and getting a glimpse of the animals throughout the night. They said that they were pretty shocked to be woken to the sound of an alarm saying that lions were on the loose.
We didn't even know what a code 1 was, but yeah, they just said, go to the bathroom blocks, hurry. So we didn't even have shoes on or anything, we just ran to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's been full of events. We've had a film shoot and lions escape.
Cool. Should we go visit the lions, Ella? Should we visit the lions? Yeah. Okay, we're going in.
So those families getting more than what they bargained for there. The zoo's word saying that there was an integrity issue with the fence, so essentially a hole or a gap. We still don't know whether or not the animals had caused that or if there was some issue with the actual perimeter itself. That's still forming part of their investigation, but I think the lions were just coming out to scope the landscape for World Pride next year.
Lara?
Well, there you are. The lions are back in and they're back safe. Of course, these kind of things do happen, but what do you really do? Well, right now we're talking about the grief that the whole nation is going through after that death of Cassius Turvey. Here's that report.
Ten past 5 on Sunday evening, exactly 1 week since Cassius Turvey's death. The teenager's family is gathering on a suburban street, metres from where he was allegedly beaten. "7:30 has permission to film. This is the first time his mother, Michelle, has been here."
Can we have a prayer, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
God of love and God of mercy and kindness.
There you go, the sun came out for it.
The sun came out. Thank you, Cassius.
We just want to basically let the world know of what type of individual he was. He was the most kindest individual, eh? We call him our gentle giant.
He was and he still is.
He was and he still is, correct.
So he helped a lot of people, the whole country healed. We're doing it together at the moment, so it's awesome.
How did you know my boy?
I think what's resonated through the community, through speaking with strangers, is he was a good kid, and what he stood for in terms of being happy and having connections with the community, the lawnmowers.
Cassius Turvey was 15. The Noongar Yamaji boy ran a pay-what-you-can lawn mowing business. Friends and family describe him as an old soul who was kind and funny, a future leader in their community.
He would just go out and try new things, and then he would always follow through with helping other children and sometimes adults to grab hold of their dreams as well.
Cassius and his friends were walking home from school in Middle Swan, northeast of Perth, when the alleged attack happened. He died 10 days later. A 21-year-old man has been charged with his murder, as well as allegedly assaulting another boy in the group and stealing his crutches.
And that is such a terrible thing to have happened, and of course we know that the whole nations, they are grieving with that, and there is no place in our community today for acts like this, definitely not. Well, right now let's go to New South Wales and Victoria, where the SES has provided advice ahead of major flooding.
It is a long list of rivers in flood in New South Wales, with our greatest concern at the moment being for the Lachlan River at Forbes, where we are expecting major flooding in the next couple of days, equivalent to probably the 1952 flood in that area. And although we have seen flooding in Forbes in recent months, this flooding will be higher than what we have seen in any of those floods. So we are asking the community to pay particular attention to our current warnings and our current advice. Moving around the state, we have the Namoi River, particularly concerned around Gunnedah, where we're seeing, again, major flooding. Down on the Murrumbidgee, we've got Tumut, Gundagai, Wagga, Hay and Cootamundra, where we have seen significant flooding for some time, but our particular concern there is around Wagga, where we have evacuation orders current, and we're currently out door knocking those communities. Not forgotten the Barwon-Darling river systems, where Lightning Ridge and Walgett have now become isolated from significant flooding in that area, and that will be isolated and see that flooding for months to come. Along with down on the Murray River system, down around Moama, where all that water is heading from Victoria and New South Wales. So about 431 RFAs in the last 24 hours, 15 of them flood rescues. So our volunteers and our partner emergency services keeping busy in those communities, supporting resupplies. Obviously the storm damage work from those thunderstorms we saw earlier in the week, but those flood rescues, we do ask people to stay out of floodwaters, don't drive, ride or walk into floodwaters.
Don't drive or walk into floodwaters. If it's flooded, forget it. The same old saying keeps going, but people still do the wrong thing. So they were, our thoughts are with the people within the area, and the only advice is that, follow all the advice that has been put out by the government. Any emergency warnings, please pay heed to that. Well, right now, moving on, let's take a look at a little bit of international scenario where AFP gives Solomon Islands police semi-automatic rifles.
So Australia's making a pretty substantial donation to Solomon Islands, a total of 60 semi-automatic rifles, fairly serious ones, as well as just over a dozen police vehicles. So some fairly substantial kit. Now, what's the difference between what they've given today and what they've given in the past? Well, this is the first time that Australia's actually taken the step of handing over semi-automatic weapons. Typically in the past, we've handed over simply firearms like Glocks, and the like. Now we're making the move slowly over time towards both equipping and training the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force with more sophisticated, high-powered weapons. So this is a process, if you like, of rearming the police force in the wake of the terrible national turmoil that really gripped Solomon Islands around the turn of the millennium, from about 1998 to 2003, before Australia led an intervention with the Ramsay mission. What we saw in that period was real chaos in Solomon Islands. We saw police armories raided by militias who were vying for supremacy in Solomon Islands. We saw people essentially extorted by militias as they wrestled control of the country. When Australia came in at the head of Ramsay in 2003, what it did is it declared a gun amnesty, gathered a lot of illegal weapons, and then they destroyed them. Some of them were symbolically burnt, in fact, in public in Solomon Islands. And for a number of years, Solomon Islands police carried no weapons whatsoever. The police force is now gradually beginning to rearm. This sort of started slowly in 2013, gathered pace in 2017, and now we're seeing these more serious guns being handed to Solomon Islands Police Force under an agreement struck by Australia and Solomon Islands last year.
So under this agreement, the guns have been provided. What do you think, is that still promoting a warfare, but it is going to be used for controlling, the situations similar to the last ROIT that they were talking about? Well, right now, we talked about the properties and the property listings, and we know that the interest rate has been going up continuously. What is that causing? A term that's normally been, or has been widely used in US, now surfaces here in Australia, the term distressed sales. So what's happening in that area?
Let's just look to the next couple of months. So we've had this increase, huge increase in rates over the last 6 months. Philip Lowe says he's leaving the door open to more increases. What sort of effect is this going to have on the housing market?
Exactly. So we've seen that the RBA have delivered 275 basis points of tightening so far. And with that, that is significantly reducing maximum borrowing capacities and increasing mortgage borrowing costs around the country. So now the cash rate is sitting at 2.85%. Maximum borrowing capacities will have been reduced by more than 20%. And that will continue to impact prices, weighing on prices in the period ahead. And with further rate rises expected, we are expecting home prices to continue to fall.
Have you got a ballpark figure of what you think they're going to fall by? I mean, obviously it varies very much state by state and market by market.
It does vary market by market, but on a national level, we're expecting that home prices will be down between 2 and 5% by the end of this year, with a further 7 to 10% penciled in for next year.
Okay, some other economists are putting it as much higher as well. It's all a bit of crystal ball gazing, but you have had your latest PropTrack report about what the housing market has been up to over the last month. What did you find?
So we saw that on a national level, the pace of price falls eased throughout October with the spring selling season underway. So nationally, home prices fell just 0.06%. Now, that's the smallest pace of price falls since national home prices peaked in March. In Sydney, those price falls were a little bit more. The same in Hobart as well, actually leading the price declines in October, down 0.46%. But interestingly, we're seeing that South Australia continues to be a relative stronghold, very much defying the downturn, and home prices in Adelaide and actually regional South Australia as well continue to rise to fresh peaks.
Okay, so that's your data. Other organisations do have slightly different data as well. I wanted to get your views on the inflation expectations that the RBA governor put out yesterday. So in last week's federal budget, the forecast was for 7.75% by the end of the year. Now the RBA is putting it at 8% by the end of the year and with a fall. How accurate do you think those are?
Well, we certainly saw that the inflation data we received last year came in a little bit hotter than expected, and I guess critical for households, those non-discretionary inflationary pressures, which really means that the standard of living continues to fall, particularly in combination with weak wages growth. Now, we are expecting strong rental prices and, of course, increases in gas and electricity prices to continue to flow into higher inflation reads. And we are seeing that inflation is remaining persistently high, really in most developed economies. So the RBA modestly revising their inflation forecasts up to peak at 8% later this year seems reasonable. But don't forget, inflation will then begin to drop away as we see those kind of supply side constraints easing into next year, some of those freight and logistics constraints easing. But I think importantly, what was detailed in the statement as well is that the RBA don't expect inflation to return to their 2 to 3% target band until 2025.
So 2025 is the target. Of course, we talked about this yesterday at the real estate update with Usha Chandra of Global Net Realty, that the whole move is to bring the inflation back in line, back in control. But they're trying that very hard. But it is putting a lot of pressure with the property owners, people who have got big mortgages and who were just on the line where they just qualified for the loan, but now this is pushing them beyond the affordability, so that's what's causing the distress sales. Now for the other area, which is of another concern in Australia, employment.
As we've learned, I think, a low unemployment number doesn't by itself solve everything.
The government's Jobs Summit in September was meant to find common ground between unions and business. Both sides want to revive enterprise agreements, deals tailored to an individual workplace. They've been in decline for years, thanks to stringent interpretations of what's known as the Better Off Overall test, aimed at ensuring no one is worse off than they would be on an award.
It is critically endangered in highly feminised sectors like aged care and childcare.
Unions and employers agreed on subtle changes to make the test more flexible. That's been reflected in the government's legislation.
We'll make the Better Off Overall test simple, flexible and fair.
Far more controversial is a proposed change to allow workers and their union reps to seek agreements across multiple employers at once and to hold strikes in support of their demands. The government argues this will help low-paid feminised sectors like childcare. It would give unions more bargaining power, and at the time of the Jobs Summit, even the Small Business Council expressed some interest.
When we all agree that the current system is broken, what's the solution? Well, the solution is to start talking.
But other business groups are firmly against multi-employer bargaining. They fear it will lead to crippling industrial action and hold back productive and innovative firms. It's the biggest sticking point in the Industrial Relations Bill, which has been sent to a parliamentary committee due to report back in 2 weeks. Tony Burke is the Minister for Employment.
So, it is going to be tough as well in that sector as well. Now, when you look at the collective enterprise bargaining, you look at, I believe it should be on individual basis because, individual circumstances are changed as long as no one is disadvantaged. and then the flexible working conditions, suited to that particular industry, that particular business would be the way to go, as long as no one is disadvantaged and that all provisions of the award are looked at. Well, right now, a good news is that, to me it is good news, is that they're going to ban mobile phones in some of the schools.
They're a part of everyday life in the wider world, but from the start of 2023, mobile phones will no longer be a part of territory classrooms. The Education Minister saying multiple stakeholders have called for the devices to go.
Whether that's from teachers, whether it's principals, whether it's families, it seems to be constantly about the the disruption that mobile phones have in our schools.
Advocates of the ban say it'll allow teachers to focus on teaching instead of dealing with bullying and other problems linked to mobile phone use.
A lot of our educators...
And I do strongly believe and agree with that. Mobile phones should not be allowed in the classroom. Simple as that. We have all survived and lived. And because it is very useful, but it is very destructive as well, and people get so addicted, sitting in the meetings and everything. You're so tempted just to glance, look at that. People are so many people are quite rude. In a meeting, someone's talking to you and they're busy replying to another text and things like that. So you're not actually paying attention to what's being said, and it is outright rude. But in classroom, definitely not, because it takes away. It does take away from your learning and your teaching, because if you are a teacher and if you're constantly looking at your phone, you're not giving the students the due attention that is needed. So there you are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's go to our daily India report. Before we go to that, IBC reports on that bridge collapse in Gujarat.
The Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived here at the site of the bridge collapse. He arrived via helicopter looking at the damage from the air and then has now come here to the site to look at what's going on. There are still several rescue teams trying to look for more bodies and recover them from the Machu River. Now, this bridge collapse that happened on Sunday evening, lots of holidaymakers here in the town of Morbi were on the bridge, and there are now lots of questions and concerns about what went wrong. The devastation and sadness over this tragedy has converted to anger. There have been protests in different parts of Morbi, people calling for answers for the families of victims as well as the survivors. And we understand the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to hold a meeting with investigators to get an update on where that's all up to. Now, we have heard that overcrowding on this bridge, too many tickets being sold, as well as concerns about renovations on this bridge and it being opened too early without approvals. These are the reasons being offered for this devastating tragedy here in Morbi.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Well, right now it's time to go to our daily India report, and with that we would welcome Akita for the daily India report today on the 3rd day of November 2022.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar takes swipe at China's Belt and Road Initiative project at SCO meet and says projects should respect the territorial integrity of countries. In an apparent swipe at China, the Indian External Affairs Minister on November 1st said that connectivity projects in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization region should focus on the interests of Central Asian states and respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries. Dr. Jaishankar made the remarks while representing India in a virtual meeting of the SCO Council of Heads of Government that was held to shape the grouping's trade and economic agenda. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang hosted the meeting since the Council of Heads of Government is chaired by China. India was the only SCO member state that did not reaffirm support for China's Belt and Road Initiative in a joint communique issued after the meeting. Though Jaishankar didn't refer to any country in his remarks, India has for long opposed the BRI because a key part of it, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, passes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. India was among the few countries that didn't sign up for BRI, and Indian officials have said Chinese connectivity initiatives do not offer a level playing field for non-China firms. The joint communique said Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan had backed the BRI and worked to jointly implement this project, including efforts to link the Eurasian Economic Union and BRI. Jaishankar said better connectivity will unlock the economic potential of the SCO region, and in this, Iran's Chabahar port and the international North-South transport corridor could become enablers. India has developed a terminal at Chabahar port and there are plans to integrate the strategic port with INSTC. The port has also played a key role in the transshipment of goods from Russia to India following the start of the Ukraine war. Australia is keen to crank up military ties with India and enhance cooperation in maritime domain awareness through classified exchanges. Australia is keen to expand and enhance military ties with India in terms of maritime domain awareness, combat exercises, classified information exchange, interoperability, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Visiting Australian Navy Fleet Commander Rear Admiral Jonathan Early said that there is a lot of stress and strain underway in the Indo-Pacific with the number of challenges like climate change and big power muscle movement, which includes India facing live borders. He added that with India and Australia guarding the two flanks of the Indian Ocean, the two countries can certainly enhance cooperation in maritime domain awareness through classified exchanges and exploitation of common platforms like P-8I, maritime patrol aircraft and MH-60 Romeo helicopters. The two countries will also increase the complexity of their bilateral and multilateral combat exercises. India, the US, Japan and Australia will kick off the top-notch Malabar exercise of Yokosuka in Japan next week, with the Quad countries having earlier declared their intent to deter any coercion in the Indo-Pacific. Australia has also invited India to participate in its largest biennial Talisman Sabre exercise with the US and other countries next year. After India's recent participation in the major multi-nation Pitch Black air combat exercise at Darwin in Australia, the armies from the two countries will also conduct the first ever Austra-Hind infantry combat exercise at the Mahajan Field firing ranges in Rajasthan from November 28 to December 11th. 16 higher education institutions from Ireland will take part in education fairs across India starting November 19th. Ireland has announced plans to bring together 16 Irish higher education institutions to India for their on-ground education fairs across cities in November 2022. According to an official statement, the fair is scheduled to be held in Delhi on November 19th, followed by 4 other major cities, Pune on November 20th, Mumbai on November 23rd, Chennai on November 26th and Bangalore on November 27th. The fair aims to offer an overview of the opportunities Ireland has to offer to Indian students looking forward to studying abroad for the academic year 2023-24. Barry O'Driscoll, Regional Manager, India and South Asia for Education in Ireland, said Education in Ireland's first post-pandemic education roadshow will present students with an opportunity to explore and find the right courses and indeed career prospects by interacting face-to-face and directly with representatives of Irish higher education institutions. Currently, Ireland hosts 35,000 students from 160 countries studying in Ireland, which includes around 6,000 students from India. In addition, the education fairs further aim at educating aspiring students and parents about the admission process, courses, visa process, and post-study stay-back option offered to international students. The fair claims to provide a free platform for all students to interact, gauge their prospects, apply directly to the below-mentioned leading Irish institution, and receive first-hand information on courses, the admission process, job opportunities, campus recruitment, scholarships, intakes, and among others. Indian billionaire Gautam Adani regains the world's third richest man spot ahead of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. India's richest industrialist Gautam Adani's wealth surged over $1 billion on October 31st as Indian stocks rallied, pushing him up again to the number 3 spot on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Adani had reached the number 3 spot earlier on August 30th, 2022. The Adani Group chairman has once again piped Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who suffered a $1 billion decline in his fortune over a decline in Amazon shares. On the other hand,
a $1.37 billion gain pushed Adani's wealth to $126 billion, making him the third richest in the world behind Louis Vuitton's Bernard Arnault, who is currently the world's second richest man with a net worth of $138 billion. The list is still ruled by Tesla CEO and now the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, whose net worth is a whopping $203 billion. He is the only person on the list to have a fortune of over $150 billion.
The Reserve Bank of India has launched its digital currency, Central Bank Digital Currency.
After months of planning, the Reserve Bank of India rolled out its digital currency, the Central Bank Digital Currency, on November 1st. The Central Bank Digital Currency is a legal tender issued in digital form. It is the same as a fiat currency, but the form is different and is exchangeable one-to-one with government-issued money. In other words, CBDC is the same as the legal currency we use, just that it's in a digital form. The launch is being carried out in two phases. In the first, the digital rupee was launched in the wholesale segment. The second phase, likely to take place in a month's time, will see the digital rupee being launched in the retail segment in closed user groups of customers and merchants. According to the RBI, 9 banks, namely State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Union Bank of India, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Yes Bank, IDFC First Bank and HSBC will participate in the pilot. According to the RBI release issued on October 31st, the use case for the wholesale pilot is the settlement of secondary market transactions in government securities. It is expected to make the interbank market more efficient.
Bollywood star Ranveer Singh to represent India at the FIFA World Cup final in Qatar in December.
Bollywood superstar Ranveer Singh, who is regarded as one of the best actors in Indian cinema, is considered an able culture ambassador of India to the West. With his popularity soaring across the globe, the youth icon has now been invited to attend and represent India at the FIFA World Cup final in Qatar. Ranveer will be flying to Qatar to attend the biggest sporting event on December 18th, which will see two of the best countries in world football lock horns to lift the coveted World Cup. Ranveer represents the aspirational youth of India globally and is the perfect ambassador to be there at the FIFA World Cup finals. He will be there for a day and will have a host of key meetings with multiple global footballing icons who are also being finalized to attend the marquee event. Ranveer was also recently at the NBA games in Abu Dhabi, where he met basketball icons Shaquille O'Neal and Vince Carter and also interacted with the new stars Trae Young and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is now set to be honored at the prestigious Marrakech Film Festival with the Etoile d'Or Award, previously received by the likes of Bollywood icons Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan and Aamir Khan.
Trailer of the second season of Breathe Into the Shadows released by OTT platform Prime Video.
पागलपनी तो मेरा ऑक्सीजन है भाई। मैंने पूरा घर देख लिया, सब मर जाएंगे। कॉकरोचेस।
इतने सालों बाद ट्रेन जर्नी, I'm dying of excitement, man.
I promise you.
An intriguing trailer of the highly anticipated Breathe Into the Shadows Season 2 has been released. It is laced with intense action scenes and demonstrates how the character of heartless Jay psychiatrist and serial killer played by Abhishek Bachchan has picked up where he left off. Abhishek took to Instagram to share the fascinating trailer, which he captioned as "The Game of Shadows has just begun." #Breathe Into the Shadows trailer out now. After a 2-year hiatus, the show Breathe Into the Shadows 2 has returned to the screen. The trailer shows how ruthlessly Jay has returned from where he left off to continue incomplete goal of capturing the last 6 victims. We'll see Kabir exerting every effort to stop Jay and his behavior. Actor Amit Sad said Breathe Into the Shadow Season 2 is much bigger and more complex. Since the very first installment, Breathe has become a huge part of my life. Taking the story forward from Season 1 and continuing from where we left off, it has been an experience and I'm excited to witness the viewers' reaction to it. Without unveiling the thrill, I can only say expect the unexpected from this season. The second season of the psychological thriller will star Abhishek Bachchan and Amit Sad, as well as Nithya Menon, Sayami Kher and Ivana Kaur. Naveen Kasturia joins the ensemble cast in a previously unsealed Avatar, adding double trouble to the unexplained deaths. The 8-episode original series produced by Vikram Malhotra and Abanshia Entertainment is directed by Mayank Sharma, who also directed the previous season 2 of Breathe Into the Shadows, will premiere on Prime Video on November 9th, 2022.
मैं अविनाश को नहीं छोड़ूंगा।
I will not be a part of this madness.
बस एक ही बात, सिया को इंसल्ट कौन देगा?
Don't you dare take Sia's name.
तुम जैसा सोचने लग गई हो। You enjoy all this revenge.
शायद तुम भूल गए हो कि एक मदर कैसे सोचती है.
That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you very much for that report, Ankita. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's take a look at the functions and events taking place right here in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment today, and it's been wonderful having your company here on the segment. Don't forget that today is a very important day when we launch the official launch. The exhibition actually opened yesterday. There's the Indian exhibition, Incredible India, put together by Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times and the team. With the assistance of Sunnybank Multicultural Gallery. So its official opening will be 6:30 p.m. today. So if you ever passing through the Sunnybank Shopping Plaza, shop number 77B, next to the post office shop, the exhibition, please do come and have a look. But if you're in the area, if in the vicinity, join us today at 6:30 p.m. For the official opening. And Pandit Josiji, Suprabhat, good morning to you as well. But ladies and gentlemen, it's right now time to say goodbye from the segment. We will see you all back tomorrow. And don't forget that this weekend we also have the doctor's program, Aapki Sehat, which will be coming your way as well. So ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to say goodbye until tomorrow. And we will see you back at that program.